vision's lost, sleeping might get dead. Winds find a howl, the beast is on the prowl. Can you hear the strange cry? Winds of change are going by. Mountains crumble and cities fall, don't come to an end. Let's get it on the desert floor, waiting for the wind. Winds find a howl,
1 year later,
the beast is on.
after Modern Times, 1982, Winds of Change was released, produced by Kevin Bernish on the Grunt label again. So Ron Nevison did not produce this one. This LP produced 3 singles, 2 top 40 hits. One of them was Be My Lady, was the top charting song at number 28. Winds of Change, the song playing now, peaked at number 38. Can't Find Love was another single that did not chart. And there were 4 music videos done for this. So I mentioned in the last video how MTV was becoming a thing, and it bled into even Jefferson Starship, and they started doing music videos. Well, they did 4 music videos off of this album. The 3 songs I just mentioned, plus Out of Control, which was not released as a single. You know, in comparison to the previous JS albums, this managed to get to gold, but it was the lowest charting up to this point. It was number 26, I believe, on the chart. So it was the same as Modern Times, but it didn't sell as much as Modern Times. So this was the tied Modern Times for the lowest selling album, which was kind of a surprise given that you had the return of Grace, and it didn't. You'd think that would bolster the sales, but to no avail. For whatever reason, it didn't do as well as you would think it might do. All right, let's get into the personnel. And since this album does not, the cover or the insert sleeve does not include any pictures of the band members. The first JS album to completely omit pictures of band members. So this is the only one I could find of that comprises the players, all of the players from Winds of Change. This may have been taken from the Modern Times era, possibly, or right at the beginning of the Winds of Change. So we have 2 changes. One is the one that I just mentioned. You have the return of Grace Slick, who officially is now back in the band, and more importantly, she is now sober. So she is no longer from this point out, she pretty much remains off of drugs, including alcohol, and up until the point she retires. This is confirmed by the band members. So she's no longer like the subject of drama and with the inner workings of the band, like as was the case in Jefferson Airplane and the earlier Jefferson Starship before she left, which is a good thing. So you have Grace Slick back on vocals. You have Mickey Thomas back on vocals too, and they're finding how their voices work together. Paul Kantner, of course, is back on rhythm guitar and backing vocals. David Freiberg back on the bass and keyboards, mostly keyboards, and some backing vocals. And Craig Chiquiso here is back as the lead guitarist, and doesn't shred as much on this one, but he's still a prominent part, of course. And then Pete Sears up there at the top right is back on bass and keyboards. This is Ainsley Dunbar, who of course, the drummer who of course replaced John Barbata in 1979. And so he did the drumming on Winds of Change also. So this was the third album he was on. Okay, but so there would be a change here at the drummer position. Now, as far back as the late 90s, I saw some things on the internet talking about his departure and how there's just certain accusations that were made. None of these things were like confirmed as being spoken by actual band members, just fans. There's even one now on a fan site that talks about a third party who made the mistake of mentioning the name Ainsley Dunbar to Paul Kantner, and how he got angry and said something about how he came close to shooting Dunbar. So I don't know if this is true. I don't like having things like that floating out there that you don't aren't confirmed, and just so I don't know if that is true. Whatever the case, there was it was not an amicable parting, and it happened abruptly. There is if you look up like Nevada arrests, there is a recent conviction in the last 10 years of Ainsley Dunbar that does confirm some of these claims, and it's not very good. And I hate to soil this video by bringing that up, but it is part of the band's history, so it has to be mentioned. You would think that if someone came close to shooting a member, then whatever the incident was, it had to involve a family member or somebody at least very close. But in any case, putting aside all of that, we say goodbye to Ainsley Dunbar, and just basing him on, as they say, on the playing field. There were 3 drummers in the history of JS from 1974 to 84, of course, and I would rank him as the top drummer. He's the just sharp, has more like a rock sound to it. I would say John Barbata would be second. He was good for what the sound was for the 70s with Marty Balin and Grace Slick singing. And then the drummer that came in to replace Dunbar, Donnie Baldwin, is probably a so-so or but maybe above average drummer. Didn't have as many prominent moments. Probably his best would be the rolling intro and It's Not Over Till It's Over, which was a Starship song. Alright, so this is a very important replacement for 2 reasons. One reason is Donnie Baldwin, who came in abruptly after the recording and was on the tour, the Winds of Change tour. So he played all of the shows on the Winds of Change tour. So one of the reasons this is a big development is because Donnie Baldwin came from the Elvin Bishop band. He was with Mickey Thomas in Elvin Bishop, and he was a friend of Mickey. So this is also a little strange to me because Kantner was the leader of the band, and it makes me wonder why they have an opening spot, and why would he just allow Mickey to come in and say, hey, I've got a When I've got a friend here, you know, he's good. Instead of Cantner making the call, you know, maybe even saying to Freiberg, do you know anyone from Quicksilver Messenger Service that might be available? I'm sure he had friends, he had lists, but for all of the claims about Cantner being a control freak and a dictator, this runs very contrary to those claims. But the point is, this set up a power base in the band. You already had Mickey and Craig who favored the MTV stuff and sort of the push towards pop rock type of things that were contrary to the original JS. And you add Donnie Baldwin in there, and that's a pretty significant faction right there. That's 3 people. I'm not saying that Baldwin was the deciding vote on those things, but it does create a pretty big base there. And that would come back to, I guess, to haunt Cantner. Maybe he, in retrospect, thought I should have named the drummer, but it was all meant to be. That's the band lineup. Oh, and the second reason that's an important development in the history of JS and Starship is, ironically, having Baldwin in the band just having his presence there would later cause not just a splintering, but a permanent grounding to the band Starship, which would happen, an incident that would happen 7 years later, and we'll talk about that as we get when we get to that point. But this was the Winds of Change recording lineup. All right, so here's a official promotional picture of JS when they were touring under Winds of Change. So the same band members: Sears, Cantner, Thomas, Slick, Chiquiso, Freiberg, and this right here is the new drummer, Donnie Baldwin. Of course, on the Grunt label. All right, let's get to the content. Okay, and one more thing about the tour, the Winds of Change tour, is that there's actually a VHS released with a show on this, and what do you think? I wasn't gonna have it? You've probably seen this in my movies videos, but this is called the Definitive Concert. Okay, so you can see the whole band there. It's kind of hard to see. There you go. There's a picture right there of the '82 tour. And it's called the Definitive Concert, but my goodness, is it anything but. This is a terrible representation. I mean, I've seen one show of this tour on YouTube. It's a different one. This was in Canada, I believe. But it is really good. But this thing is just awful. Pete Sears with the double bass right there. Alright, so Winds of Change, the title track, was a top 40, like I mentioned. Now I like Be My Lady, which charted higher, but the title track, Winds of Change, is my favorite off this album. I would even go as far as to say it's my second favorite JS song from the Mickey era. I think Stranger is 1, and then Winds of Change is 2. So maybe Find Your Way Back 3, somewhere in there. Be My Lady 4, Jane 5. It has a real, it has a St. Charles vibe to it. It really does. The opening kind of atmospheric part to it reminds me a little bit of St. Charles. I mean, it's not the exact same thing, but then it kind of, St. Charles, of course, holds that atmosphere through the whole song. Winds of Change goes a little bit more towards the pop after that, but it still has a real, good deep feel to it. And I can say this with confidence, it's the best Sears song lyrically. So it's It's the best lyrics that Jeanette Sears came up with. And you see JS in the song Winds of Change building off of Stranger as far as, utilizing the Mickey Grace duet to its fullest. So both of those songs are kind of precursors to what we would hear later with We Built This City, but that's in the future. The next song is called Keep On Dancing. Okay. Sorry, not Keep On Dancing. Keep On Dreaming. This is a Craig Chaquico written song. And I've heard some people say, how is this not a hit song? Well, mainly because right after the chorus, you have this stuff about, so it's where Mickey goes, magic kind of love, magic kind of love. And it's just like, it's cartoonish, and maybe it was the fact that it wasn't, the editing and the production failed on this, but it's just not very good. You can tell it has some things going for it in the beginning, and it's a 5-minute song too, so definitely the editing could have been much better. Be My Lady is arguably the best song on the album. It's just a wonderful ballad. Be My Lady is the runaway of the JS Mickey period, I believe. So obviously you have JS is split into two different parts. You have the 4 albums with Marty and Grace, and the 4 albums with Mickey. Be My Lady is kind of the did I say that right? Yeah. Be My Lady's the Count on Me of the Mickey era. Also a Sears composition. Jeanette and Pete Sears did Be My Lady, so again they're continuing to come through. They followed that up with, so you have back-to-back ballads. Kind of a weird arrangement in this album as far as the order. I like the fact that it begins with Winds of Change, which is kind of a medium tempo, and then it's a faster tempo with Keep On Dreaming, and then you go with a slow ballad with Be My Lady. Then you have back-to-back. So you have I Will Stay, which I've always liked. It has a very nice piano intro. The lyrics are kind of schmaltzy. It's not great, but I've always liked the song. Mickey does it a great service, despite those lyrics. But again, Sears again contributing there. The next one is called Out of Control. There's a video on this. It's a Kantner Slick song. Even China Kantner, their daughter, got a writing credit on this one. Out of Control, and I kind of like this. This is one of those. It's just hard to explain. It's just one of those weird songs that you come to expect at least one of on JS, and it's one it's definitely grown on me. You get kind of the sense of humor of Slick coming out, which is a great thing, and then you hear Kantner in there, which is just kind of his passion. The next one is called Can't Find Love, which you just heard, and that one's decent too. It was it didn't chart. They released it as a single. It's pretty good. That's the one that Monica Clemens, the girlfriend of Chaquico, got a partial writing credit, as did Mickey Thomas on that one. What are we up to now? Okay, so the one you're listening to right now is called Black Widow. This is a Slick Chaquico song, but it's mostly Slick who wrote this. It sounds like something that maybe would have been better on a Grace Slick solo album. She had a few of these in the 80s. But, it's still... And they try to play it live. It's on this definitive concert. It's Slick, being quirky, and that's cool. She also is good on that at the end of Can't Find Love, where she does this rapid fire lyrics, and some of the lyrics are a little dirty, and it's just classic of kind of what she brings to the table in JS. The next song is called I Came Back from the Jaws of the Dragon. Obviously this is a Kantner song. it's a pretty good song. It has a pretty nice melody to it. It's over long though. You have this part where he's going, "I'm over the line, I'm over the line," just repeating that over and over, and it's kind of a speed bump in the song. They could have done without that or shortened it, made it a lot better. I came back from the jaws of the dragon. It's just one of those Cantner, like, Ride the Tiger, Devil's Den, Dance with the Dragon. I came back from the jaws of the dragon. I kind of like those. Maybe it's because they sound like low-budget 70s horror film titles, but I like the song. It's good. And the final one is called, another Jeanette and Pete Sears song called "Quit Wasting Time," and the title says it all. Ironically, it's a total waste of time. There's just nothing good about that song. So it kind of hurts. It kind of hurts you leave the album like, yeah, they could have either had something better, or they could have switched the order of it and left us on a high note, which they didn't do. All right, so winds have changed. Similar to Modern Times, it's a pretty quick album. It's like in that 40-minute total running time, and I think there's only 9 songs on it. Is that correct? Only 9 tracks, so it's a quick listen. There's going to be much more to consume on Nuclear Furniture. It's a little longer, it's more involved, but this one, this is an album that is it's kind of forgotten in the complete JS catalog, but especially in the Mickey era catalog. This is the song I was talking about earlier, but one of the real shames is that on this CD here, Starship, this is like the greatest hits, won 10 years and change, 79 through 91. Obviously, I'm not going to review this, and this won't count in my rankings, but I'm going to refer back to it more when we get to the end of this. But if you look at the songs here, it's called Starship Greatest Hits, but it actually has Jefferson Starship, and then Starship, and a couple of new songs that they released for this album. But sadly, they completely omitted Winds of Change songs, Be My Lady and the title track. One, if not both of those songs, should have been included on this LP. Maybe they were trying to save space for the 2 new ones, but I mean, you can fit those on here. Come on. It's just, they also left out Tomorrow Doesn't Matter Tonight, which was a Starship song, but it's kind of disappointing to see that this album has no representation on this is really the greatest hits one. Now, some best of and other compilations have come out since then that included Winds of Change songs, but it's too little too late, because most of those came out during a time when CDs became obsolete. This came out in 1991 when people were buying CDs. This is one that I picked up after seeing Starship live. Kind of a strange cover there. This was not done by that Japanese guy who did Spitfire. Speaking of Spitfire, this is kind of like the Spitfire of the Mickey era. Kind of forgotten. Also, if you look at this, look at the tracks here, it's not counting the 2 new ones. It reads a lot like a typical Starship featuring Mickey Thomas set list. So these are the ones he has focused on for the last like 20 years or so. These songs primarily. Now, from time to time he will do Be My Lady, but it's rare. And I was actually there when he did live when he did a Winds of Change, but it's an acoustic slow version of the song, which is fine. I understand Mickey's got to let his fans have a piss break after consuming those $8 Coors Lights, but I'd much rather hear the album version represented live than that one. That's Winds of Change, boys. All right, so actually the song.
Do me a favor, introduce me. First of all,
Well, here's the introduction. I should have done this earlier.
First guy fooling around there is David Freiberg.
David, nice to have you with us, sir.
That is Pete Sears on bass. They're both on bass.
Thank you. Yes, things have changed since we last looked. On drums?
Drums, Don Baldwin.
Thank you, Don.
Lead guitar is Craig Chiquiso.
Thank you, Craig. And lastly,
And lead singer is Mickey Thomas.
have you any idea who this man on the right is?
He's one of the old guys. He's the only original member of the group.
Only original. This is Paul Kantner. Paul? How do you, well, first of all, I know it was a big hit for you when you were here in 1967, and that inspired you to go on to great things, right?
Among other things.
That was the highlight of your life.
I come here once every 15 years. Check out what's happening.
to rejuvenate you.
Studio.
How do you explain the survival of this organization? All of these people have joined you along the way. Grace joined you, what, 1 year after you started?
About that, yeah.
How do you explain that you've done well all these years? Are you
Good companions.
really?
Yeah, I think so. People who want to do it.
I want to ask you why.
That was from 1983, which was the year that the single Winds of Change was released. Everything seemed to be coming up roses, and there were a lot of smiles, and everyone seemed to be happy together. As you heard Kantner say, it was good companions, people who wanted to be there. But the plot will thicken on the next video. This has been Winds of Change. Thanks for watching.